Unique New York. Unique New York. All right, you guys, we're back at it. But before we get started, we want to talk about our sponsor today, which is Hexa Coffee. You may have seen or heard a bit more about it on our episode with Parker Slade, the founder, that was on episode 11. If you haven't checked it out, you definitely should. But yeah, they roast their own beans, source them from around the world, and they do a really great job. And they've got a lot of specialties, including their bourbon-aged beans that are really incredible, a unique profile that's kind of based on these warm, rich, bourbony notes. It's really a fun stop to visit. If you're in Chicago, check them out.
Yeah, they're located at the corner of Clybourne and Diversey in Roscoe Village. It's a great cafe, cool music, cool people. They also have amazing pastries. They got beer on tap. They got even cocktails, some of which using their coffee. And if you don't live in Chicago, you can order their coffee online at hexacoffee.com. And we've got a deal for you if you do so. If you use the promo code ELK at checkout, you'll get 10% off of your order.
So easy.
So once again, that's hexacoffee.com, Hexe coffee.com. Use the promo code ELK and get 10% off of your purchase.
So who are we talking to today?
Well, today we have Emily McCrae, a good friend of Christine's that is now a good friend of mine as well. We talk about her knowledge of early childhood education as well as her unique childhood itself. And we had a great time.
She's a spicy little mermaid, so please enjoy. Emily McCrae.
Oh,
my dear,
I didn't know your last name
friend.
till just now.
Okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's it's
We don't
a
have to
married last
include
name.
it.
It's fake. You
Oh.
know, I've got
It's a
few
placebo,
names.
if you will.
I got a few names.
I know.
What's
what do we?
your-
Ruby Star. I mean, what
Tillman
name
your
do we
maiden
go with?
name?
Tillman is my maiden name. Yeah.
Can we start with that? Can we talk about your dad?
Sure. You want to talk about my dad?
Yeah, well,
What
I
do
just
you
found
wanna
out.
know?
I just found out that your dad was an
Yeah,
NFL superstar.
He was. That's true.
Played for the Washington
You got it.
Redskins
Well,
at
yeah.
the time.
Right. It's true.
The artist formerly known
That's
as.
right. Yeah.
What did he play?
He was a linebacker.
Oh,
Yeah.
big guy.
A big guy. I mean, it's interesting now. You see these football players that are so larger than life. So it's, it needs a little time. The times have changed.
Mm-hmm.
But he was there from 70 to 79. It was a long time ago. This is vintage.
Were you alive when he was playing?
No, I was born in 79.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was at the end. I was at the end, yeah.
The celebration, the little cherry on top.
Well, I mean, that's true in a variety of ways. My parents met in college and had this kind of wild romance, and he was drafted from college to the NFL. And so then they moved out to Washington, D.C., and he made it big, and they had this fancy life, but they were just a couple kids. But, yeah,
Wait a second. You just said Washington, D.C. It was still in D.C. at the time.
Isn't
Redskins?
it?
Yeah,
It is in
so
Washington,
the
D.C.
Washington football team is...
It's not
Which
Washington
still
State.
is. I guess
Yeah.
you're right. That's obviously
Washington
like
State is the Seahawks,
Yeah,
who he
the
then
Seahawks, of
later
course.
coached for. Yeah.
Oh,
Em.
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
both
it's been a long day.
Washingtons.
That's right. He just gets
All of
around.
them.
Yeah.
That would be what a trip, like to meet your boyfriend in college. He's like a football player, then he gets
Yeah.
drafted to the NFL.
Yeah.
Like what a roller coaster.
Totally.
So
How does-
exciting.
Yeah. Have you
Super
talked to your mom
exciting.
about like what that was like?
Oh yeah, she loves to talk about it. Actually, It's like
I would
a
imagine. I
highlight
would
of-
too. I mean,
of
we're
her
talking
life.
about it.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Yeah, a couple kids, and then suddenly stardom. And my dad came from poor white trash, and then was suddenly uber famous. And apparently Ethel Kennedy was a big fan, so they spent a lot of time going to parties there. And I believe they went to the Super Bowl twice during 70 to 79.
The team went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So
Wow.
So cool.
Did he win a Super Bowl?
I can't confirm that.
Okay.
I don't remember, but he was a big deal. He was known as
The king, you
the
said.
king, the
Rusty
legend.
Tillman
Yeah.
is the name. Rusty
Yeah.
Tillman.
Rusty Tillman.
Yeah.
Sports people probably would know the name.
Yeah, for sure. That's true. And then he went on to coach. He had a long career coaching.
For the Seahawks. When did he stop coaching?
Yeah.
For
So
what years did he coach?
Yeah, so he started 79 or 80 is when he went with the Seahawks. He was there for 16 years, then jumped around Tampa Bay, Indianapolis, Minnesota, Oakland Raiders. And then, do you remember the XFL situation?
Yeah, I do.
So he was
Remember
the
that
head coach of the New York, New Jersey team for a second
What was
there.
that team called?
The New York, New Jersey Hitmen.
Oh
Wow.
But
my
that whole
gosh, the
situation was,
Hitmen.
you know, kind of.
Was that just
kind of
one
a
season?
flop.
The XFL?
Yeah, I don't think it went
Yeah, it
very
didn't
well.
really take off. Although I really wanted it to because
Yeah.
I loved indoor soccer. It was
Yeah.
so much tougher. Like you literally are just kind of bopping people in the walls. So arena football, I mean, it should
Was
work.
it arena football?
It's essentially-
the XFL. Was
Wasn't
it a
it?
smaller field and stuff? I thought it was the same size field, just like less rules and more
I know it's-
WWF kind of
Yeah,
attitude,
you're
right?
right. Yeah, and they had like
Interesting.
cameras.
Okay,
on
I didn't
the
know it was
field.
performative like that.
Yeah, cameras on the field, and the cheerleaders were, you know, a little extra. Extra.
Little XXX.
A
Read
little
all about
extra
it.
Triple X.
Man,
Yeah,
man.
pretty wild.
what a trip.
Wild
And then your
ride.
dad retired in when?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. He moved back to Arizona about 10 years ago. So it was probably 2008-ish,
Okay.
2009-ish. He had a long
That's
run.
That's a long run.
I have a funny story. You want to hear my funny story?
Would love to.
So growing up, my parents were together for that 10 years. And then my mom got pregnant with me at the end of their relationship. So we were in Arizona. And then at that point, he was in Seattle. So I'd go up to visit him a couple times a year. I'd go to a game. And I grew up watching him on TV, which is a trip too. So, you know, back in the 80s, we watched football on TV.
Wow. Yeah,
And
yeah.
he was special teams, so he was known for that too. And he always had his rolled up piece of paper in his hand with all his fancy plays on
As
there.
a coach, he was special teams.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And he'd yell at the players, or I'd go to a game. So I'd fly in somewhere for the weekend to go to a game. As a little teeny tiny kid, I was flying by myself to go. And then I'd get to meet him afterwards on the sidelines and go to the locker room, which was pretty hilarious.
Wow.
But in the 80s, Brian Bosworth played for Seattle Seahawks. Do you know who that is? Yeah.
I don't.
Might be a
I
little-
probably
believe
should.
that
I probably
I
You can look
should.
him up, but he became an actor after that too, and he was kind of hot shit. He was
Okay.
pretty cute. And at 8 years old, I had a pretty serious crush on the Boz. Pretty serious. So my dad orchestrated, a meeting so I could go say hi to the Boz.
Whoa.
And
Oh goodness.
Uh-oh.
there he is. And he's like, "Hey, Emily, nice to meet you. Give me one right here." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Give me one right here." I said, "Okay."
Oh
Wow.
my gosh. That suits you.
I had no idea that he wanted me to kiss his mouth. I was 8 years old.
But also, like,
You're just
good
like
on you
looking,
for punching him. Like, what a weird thing to ask an 8-year-old to do.
She just thinks like you're just like looking at this tough
Okay.
guy, assuming things should be like in this tough, weird world, right? Like, oh my god, that's
Wow.
amazing.
So what did it?
Well, everybody laughed, of course, but I busted his lip.
Oh,
He had
wow.
a fat lip.
You busted the Boz's lip.
I did.
Wow.
Well done.
Circa 1988-ish, 89-ish, somewhere in there. Yeah,
Good punch for an
a long
8-year-old.
time ago.
Wow.
Way to go.
So growing
Honestly,
up,
it's important to be able to throw one if you ever need it.
I mean,
yeah, I've never punched anyone.
Yeah.
And you punched the Boz when you're 8.
yeah.
It's pretty good. So growing up was like sports. Were you like a sports family? Did you play a lot of sports? Was there a lot of like everyone played sports? Because you have
Swimmer
brothers,
girl.
right?
I do. I have a million siblings, but they're all from different folks. So I was the only one between my parents. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of, I'd say, some version of pressure to be an athlete, coming from, having your dad be a famous ball player, and my mom was a bit of an athlete too. So yeah, grew up swimming and playing soccer and doing all the things.
It's like Christine. Soccer and swimming, right? Those are good things.
Yeah. I dabbled in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
But you stuck with it later. You were still swimming in high school until you stopped, I think, freshman, sophomore year?
Yeah, I was probably sophomore. I turned bad real quick.
You went punk rock?
Yeah, just kind of real detour there.
Yeah. Because you were a singer in a punk rock band, right?
I was. I mean, then we fast forward to, when was that? Around 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, Jane Doe and the Decomposers.
Nice. Great name.
That makes me so happy, that name.
Yeah.
Makes me feel like I'm in an episode of Scooby-Doo in the best kind of way.
Yeah.
I'm really
That's like the name of
like
the
a-
episode.
yeah.
Scooby-Doo and
Yeah.
Jane Doe and the
Feels good.
Decomposers.
Jane Doe and the Decomposers. It was pretty fantastic. We were modeled after the Misfits a bit, so we did the makeup. And then my favorite thing to do was to, slam a bunch of fake blood and spew it all over the audience. So then it became this thing where, dudes would try to get up front so they could get splashed with Jane Doe blood.
So you would like spit it up
I
and
would,
stuff?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jane Doe blood.
Yeah,
That's sweet.
there was a lot going on.
That's amazing.
It
And
was
so
pretty fun.
was this mostly in Tucson?
It was, yeah.
Did you tour around or
We toured around in Arizona a couple times. We had a 1978 Cadillac hearse as our band mobile, baby
That
blue
is just
interior.
so
you guys
spot
had the
on.
branding,
It's
straight
like-
through, huh?
It's impeccable, really.
It was good. It was a good situation. I'll send you guys a flyer. I still have a
Please
flyer.
do.
Yeah. Do you have any of the recordings?
I actually do have a cassette
Wow,
tape.
that would be fun to
But do
sample.
you have a cassette player? You would be the guy that would. Do you? Nobody has a
but
cassette
could you
player.
find a way?
Of course, I could find a way. Buy a cassette player.
Just fucking
See,
figure
I'll
it
probably
out.
go to the
He's
store
doing
and
it,
buy a
guys.
cassette
Figure it
player.
out.
Or online, I guess you can get them.
Yeah.
Cassettes maybe will come back.
I think that people are putting out mixtapes and stuff again.
Because it's kind of cool to hand someone a cassette. A vinyl people like. Vinyl's cool, but like
Can't
no
put it
one's
in your
got like
pocket.
you can't have a bunch of vinyl like you're handing out in like Venice Beach, but cassettes are kind of cool.
Yeah.
And people
portable.
wouldn't want to throw it away, So if you give someone a cassette, they'll at least probably take it home and put it somewhere, but they'll never listen to it because they don't have a cassette player. That's the tricky part.
Yep.
Did you guys open for like bands that were coming through Tucson or?
Not really. We were pretty much garage punk situation. We had probably a handful of diehard fans, but it was pretty rowdy for sure.
I love it.
Yeah, it was pretty rowdy.
Amazing. And you wrote the songs, original
We did.
songs?
Yeah, we covered Black Sabbath's "MIB" at one point, which was one of my favorite songs to cover. But yeah, we wrote original tunes.
Cool. Being like into punk rock, was that like interest wise, was that like a turn for you? Or were you kind of always into like harder, heavier stuff? Were your parents into like Black Sabbath, or like where did that come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think
Did you find it or did it find you?
Yeah, right. It's hilarious. In junior high, I guess I started getting into music, and in those days, it was like Seattle grunge, right? So it was Nirvana. It was,
You guys out here with some Del Bach.
Thank you.
Nirvana,
why am I
yeah.
totally blanking? Oh, Pearl Jam was like my ultimate in
was a great
the
era.
early 90s. And, in those days, we had landlines only, and we had 411 information, So I had this brilliant idea when I was about 13 that I would call 411 and get Eddie Vedder's phone number because I wanted him to know that I was his number one fan. So I did that, and but I thought it was real clever because I was like, Eddie is short for Edward. Duh.
Edward Vedder.
So I asked
Obviously.
for Edward Vedder 411, and they gave it to me, and I called Edward Vedder and left a fucking voice message. Hey, Eddie, it's Emily, your number one fan in Tucson, Arizona.
Wow.
Give me a call back.
Do you think it was him?
I don't.
Was it like, hey, this is Eddie, I'm not here right now.
I don't think it was.
Leave a message.
But I tried. I tried. Yeah, so that was the beginning. And then, of course, like The Cure and Madonna kind of fell in there. And then, we were kind of dabbling in some more. We were just all over the place. We wanted all of it. I mean, by 94, we were raving. So early 90s raves were actually super fun because it wasn't the pacifiers and like all that stuff that it became. It was just these little like speakeasy parties, and we'd be stoned or on a little bit of LSD and just hanging out. And it was such a fun vibe. So we were jumping all over the place. But then also around that time too was like Green Day was not uber famous yet. Like we saw them at this little grungy place in Tucson.
That'd be a fun
Probably
show.
93-ish,
Wow,
like a
that's
long
cool.
time ago.
Wow.
Pennywise,
Nice.
all kinds. Yeah, I wish my memory is a little shot. Maybe a little too much LSD sometimes.
Yeah, those raves.
Anyway, yeah. So I jumped all over the place. I think I was once I was immersed in music. I mean, I found that I was a music person. You know, I tried to play everything too. I tried to play violin. I tried to play cello. Tried to play drums. Tried to play guitar. I just wasn't. Nope. But I was certainly a music lover, and I like to get down. So dancing became the thing for a long time.
You were a showman.
Yeah, but then reaching towards like Latin music and like it really became a whole thing. But with the band, it was like shits and giggles. It was fun. It was a show. It was a performance.
But that wasn't the only band you were in.
Oh.
I mean, I was a guest performer in a couple other situations. One time, I
Let's get Emily over here. Bring the blood.
Yeah, do you want to? Did
And
you
bring
have
your blood.
Do you have any sips of that yet? Drink up.
oh
here.
yeah, cheers,
No.
y'all.
Yeah,
Let's
cheers.
do that.
Cheers,
Let's do
y'all.
that. Yay.
Okay.
This
Guys.
is some. This is Tucson whiskey,
This
right?
is Tucson whiskey.
Tucson's
Whiskey
finest, Del
Del
Bach.
Del Bach whiskey. It's so good.
Yeah, and goes great with Hexa Coffee.
Hey.
It really does.
Hey.
It's like peanut butter and jelly.
So there was another band that
Yeah.
I sang with a little bit sometimes, which was pretty fun. But we opened for the Reverend Horton Heat one time. That was pretty cool.
Is that like rockabilly kind of, or what's Reverend
yeah,
Horton?
like
Okay, yeah.
psychedelic.
Yeah, you always say
Psychobilly.
Yeah.
rockabilly.
Yeah.
Again, that was early 2000s-ish, I suppose, around the same time. And then, I also toured with Calexico at one point as a merch girl, but
Oh, that's right.
got to sing with them in Greece one night, and that was super cool.
Did you spit blood on everybody?
I didn't. That was just a different feel.
Yeah, yeah.
The mariachis with us. It was a whole other thing. Yeah.
Cool.
So I'd say, stylistically, jumping around.
So what year was that? You're touring Europe with Calexico?
I did, yeah, as their merch girl. That was 2001-ish.
And that's like 12-seater van and shitty hotel rooms or tour bus?
We were in a tour bus, yeah.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, we had the mariachis with us, and we also had this really cool band called Freakwater. It was out of Nashville, I believe.
Okay.
They were awesome. And then when we were, for part of the tour, we were with the Flaming Lips and Lamb Chop. When we flew into London, did a couple shows. But the craziest thing was I was dating this guy at the time, and he would make me these mixed CDs, and he had discovered
As you did at the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nancy Sinatra and Lee Hazelwood situation. Are you familiar with that?
I mean, I know Nancy Sinatra. That's like a duet or something they did?
Yeah. So they had this. I recommend looking it up. It's
Okay.
some pretty fun stuff.
Okay.
So I just learned about Lee Hazelwood and Nancy Sinatra, blah, blah, blah. I had these CDs I was listening to. It's pretty cool stuff. And we get on this tour bus with the Flaming Lips and Lamb Chop. And who is the Flaming Lips tour manager? Lee Hazelwood. It was like so ironic
whoa.
and funny
Wow.
and cool. That was a dream experience. We had so much fun.
What year around is that?
Early 2000s, I think 2001-ish.
So what were the Flaming Lips like at that time? Were they were the whole show like we see now?
Yeah.
The bubble, everything
well,
like that?
I don't know about the bubble, but there was definitely putting on a show then for sure.
Yeah, the puppet, like the nun
Lots
lady
going
or
on.
something.
I mean, can I be honest? I'm not the biggest Flaming Lips fan.
Oh.
Can I say that? Am I in
Of
trouble?
course, you say whatever you want. I love the Flaming
Yeah,
Lips.
that's good. I'm glad. It's
But-
good.
They are. It's
okay to not like them, too.
It's a
Yeah.
very scene. It's a tight little scene in
Yeah,
there. You have to
it's
be
a
in
thing.
so it's joyous to me. I love it, but I understand that it's kind of a little hard to digest in some ways.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. Plus, you've got a lot of rock and roll in there.
I'm pretty
Let's
much
not-
rock and roll.
I would say you're mostly rock
I'm
and
mostly
roll.
rock and roll. I'm a little disco, but I'm mostly rock and roll.
Yeah,
I'd
you got
say.
some roller rink roller
Yeah,
rink?
I get down with the
roller
roller-
rink,
roller rink.
disco
Roller
in
rank.
there. It's
That's
deep in
true.
there.
That's true.
Skate
True for me.
country's in there.
But formative
see, I'm
years,
Double fisting.
it's
Yeah,
Pearl Jam.
it's all right.
Is that like the band? Like when you're,
It certainly was. Red Hot Chili Peppers.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that was just what was coming to
Jane's
mind for me.
Addiction. There was a thing with Jane's Addiction. There was some
Cool band.
serious love going on there.
That was cool too. That's
Did you like Hole? I feel like she was.
I never quite got into Courtney Love. I tried.
See, I ended up bonding with her music early, but
I think you might have showed me some Hole, but I don't really know Courtney Love's music much. I should check it out.
yeah, she's got a really raspy, awesome sound.
Yeah, that's cool. You grew up in an era where rock stars were still rock stars. Maybe for better or for worse, you know. But
That's
like
true. Yeah.
our rock stars were like people were starting to like get sober and be vegan. Not that that's bad. That's great. But part of me, I grew up loving like
The
The
Bad
Who,
Boys.
Jimi Hendrix, and like that's what a rock star is. You drink yourself to death, you know, and like you're just a belligerent psycho. And there was something about
Should
that
I
was
be
attractive
worried
to
because
me.
you're like pursuing this career?
No, but I've learned it's not. What I've realized is you don't want to be that guy. You know, like it's fun. It's an interesting spectacle. And there is something about people who just show us that like you could do anything like that, you know, like you could do this, you know, like be crazy, like it's an option. But you don't want to be that guy. But anyway, I do like there's a romantic sort of thing I have for just like rock stars that are just like fucking fucked up all the time. I don't know what it is.
I don't think it has to be fucked up. I think it's more that they are rule breakers, which is what we like about them. That's the kind of thing that like, you know, parents would forbid their teenagers from listening to it because they would encourage them to just be rowdy and, you know, mouthy and, you know, more self-dependent, like more, I don't know, just self-centered really, just like doing what you want instead of what you feel like you should do.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's kind of the purpose that rock stars serve in the world, like in
Yeah.
culture.
We could do without the drugs. We don't need them
You're right.
ODing or getting, but
Yeah, no, we don't.
so I like that things are getting sober as I
I agree with you. Cheers, cheers, everybody.
As I-
Cheers,
Cheers,
cheers
everybody.
yourselves
Do
and
another
cheers each other. Cool. And you didn't like Flaming Lips at the time either. You were like, what? Like that's when
Yeah,
you
it didn't ever really feel like my jam.
It's when you were tuning out and doing other things. Mm-hmm. Actually selling T-shirts, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's true. And then Freakwater didn't join us in Greece, and there had been a couple duets that Calexico was singing with those guys, and it was kind of funny. It was a little, I mean, it was pretty funny situation. And at the time, Joey from Calexico was like, "Wait a minute, you sing, right?" And I was like, I spit blood and scream."
the first 2 rows, you will get wet.
Hope you brought an umbrella.
Yeah. We covered a couple songs together. But the coolest thing about that situation being from Tucson is that in those days, no offense, Calexico, but people weren't showing up to their shows in Tucson. They were pretty quiet. And then, so I had no idea that when we went to Europe, there was going to be screaming women.
Oh,
Like screaming and crying.
right. You're like,
and
you're here for my friends? Like them?
begging
These
for
guys?
autographs.
Wow,
And like,
that's
it
a
was a
trip.
deal. It was a serious deal. And
I
so,
really don't know them well at all, and I've certainly never seen them in Tucson.
Yeah,
but
they're pretty great. And now, of course, they do very well, and their shows in Tucson are completely different. But a while ago, that, you know, it was a little sleepy. And
They were big
Tucson's
in Europe.
kind of a sleepy town.
it's
Right.
yeah, it's a hard place to move tickets.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, I wasn't prepared for the fans, which is of course super fun, right? Because you're with the band. But in Greece, we signed autographs, and I didn't want to write Emily Tillman because I felt like that was a basic name, and I'm with these beautiful mariachis, and we're just doing this big show, and so I was kind of influenced by the Hispanic influence going on. So I came up with Amelia Lopez,
Oh,
and I signed a few
Very nice.
autographs.
cool. Were you nervous to sing on stage?
You know, that's a funny question too. I was always super outgoing and just like, yeah, fuck it. And then I think I did that so much in those days that like now I get nervous. But in those days, I really didn't give a fuck.
Cool.
I just kind of do it.
Super cool.
We dance around and
Can you? What are these
Now that's rock and
mariachis?
roll.
Like,
The mariachis?
are they're on stage with Calexico?
Yeah, so that
There's like
album, I wish
four-
I could remember the album. We'll have to look it up. But they
Okay.
had a particular album that we toured, and there was probably, I don't know, 8 of them, like full on in their
Wow.
garb. And I mean, the sound is just, it's so good.
It is so
It's
warm.
And they're up
so
there the whole
good.
show,
The whole show.
every song.
Yeah, there maybe have been 1 or 2 songs where they didn't, but they were part of that
Wow.
album, and it's so good.
Damn, we
And
gotta
I
check
think
that out.
that sound was, it's special. It's not typical
Mm-hmm.
to hear that kind of music, especially mixed with some variation of rock and roll.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Sure.
We call it Tucson
'Cause it's
rock.
driving like acoustic guitar and trumpet. I mean, that's kind of the big sounds you get out of mariachi,
And
I
it's
assume,
big.
right?
Yeah. There's a lot of big sound with
Did they
it.
sing as well? They were like backup singers? Damn.
It was good.
That's super
well,
cool.
we
We should
Got
look up
homework.
that album.
Yeah, we
and
should
find
listen
it,
to
'cause
that.
It's good. It's really good.
We'll get it on
I think
tape.
it's my favorite, not just because I'm biased, but
What other bands have come out of Tucson? Anything else? I feel like that's the Calexico's
well,
kind of the
Calexico came
biggest
from like
ticket.
Giant Sand and How Gelb.
Oh, okay.
That's how that all, and then they kind of did their own thing.
Those are other bands that fused to become Calexico?
So it was Giant Sand first,
Okay.
and they were living in LA, and then all went to Tucson, and then John and Joey from Giant Sand created Calexico, and then How Gelb started doing his own thing.
I
As
guess-
How Gelb and still does. Yeah.
Cool.
And I can't forget Naima Moore. I'm obsessed with Naim's music. The
Yeah.
Parisian Tucsonan. It's just so
Yeah.
so special to me and such a
Yeah.
delight to
Such a
listen
vibe.
to.
Everyone should check that out. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and their first band when they were in Tucson was called Amor Bellum Duo, and they were pretty sweet situation too. Yeah.
It's like a French cowboy walks into the desert bar
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
funny.
and buys
'cause
you a beer.
their
I don't know. It's
friends-
beautiful.
Their friend's band is called French Cowboy. They came to Tucson and filmed a music video that I was in a long time ago.
Oh my
Cool.
gosh, it's
Yeah.
You're
what
just
a
like
lifetime.
the go-to,
Emily's
like,
lived-
Emily will do it.
Emily's
like,
lived
should be
all the
great.
lifetimes in
It's
every
true.
minute
I mean,
of
this
her
is
life.
such a million years ago for me,
Right.
because my life is much different now. So
How did you two initially meet?
Initially, I interviewed at her preschool that she founded. And I got hired to be a preschool teacher after I graduated from college in Tucson. And then I started working there. And I think I was there for like about 2 years.
yeah,
But yeah,
that's about right.
Do you guys remember that interview? Like first impressions of one another?
Yeah.
I remember it too.
Yeah,
I mean, not like details, but yeah, I remember sitting down with them and it felt great. And there's real questions coming my way and not just the fluffy
Yeah.
stuff. And it was a beautiful school, you know, all play-based learning. And you still are working with Teach Through Love, this awesome curriculum that kind of steers away from punitive discipline and moves to sort of leading with love and a lot of language for what's happening emotionally and kind of putting emotional emphasis on education before you really worry about introducing academics to like a, intensity, I guess.
I think that's cool.
It's super cool. And there's a lot of, I remember habits that, you kind of like helped me work out, like, not forcing kids to apologize, for example, or, letting them kind of allow empathy to build naturally instead of imposing it on them.
So you kind of explain or kind of try to pull it out of them that was wrong that they just did? Or like if someone like pushed another kid, you wouldn't say, now you need to apologize to David or whatever.
Right.
You would say what?
If they push
You would say, yeah, that's what you get, David.
Yeah.
Be like, what is the
It's a little
approach?
complicated, I will say. But I mean, my goal with all of it was, I think having the background that I had too, where there was just a varied experiences for me with a lot of self-expression, that the idea to start a school was based on lots of years for me personally of like self-healing therapy situations. So lots of needs and feelings conversation. And then also kind of looking at systems and how screwed up they are, and then this super emphasis on self-expression, whether it's art or creating something, getting lost in a flow with something, and also like self-expression when it comes to real raw emotions. So it was kind of a place where we said yes to kids being real and having screaming breakdowns, but at the same time it was also like looking at development and the neuropsychology of the brain, and like these are little kids are barbarians. They haven't developed higher brain function
Ruthless
yet.
little boogers.
Yeah, and they need us to kind of support them through it and help meet their emotional and physical needs inside of each thing. So yeah, of course, if somebody punched somebody else out, we're going to want to do everything we can to move away from that or separate the kids, but also honor that the dude that punched the other dude has a valid need, right? Because that other dude took his truck and that truck was everything.
Right.
And when he grabbed that
Big
truck
deal.
out of his hand, he was like, right. And the reality is, if we don't handle those situations well when they're little, I mean, think about 35-year-old dudes that do the same shit.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so for me, I look through a lens of like self-expression inside of that and a sensation of justice or feeling like you need to be heard inside of a situation. It's all just basic human interacting. Like we all have needs and feelings that are universal, you know? But if we don't understand how the brain works, we're going to come at that stuff in a super punitive way because it scares us as adults. We're like, dude, that guy just hit another dude. It's my job to make sure that doesn't happen, or that reflects on me in some way. And so then we get super self-centered and react out
and
of fear.
controlling. And that's when
Exactly.
we try to control, which I think is another thing you helped do as an educator, is like kind of popping the illusion of control in the classroom. Like it's not so much as, it's not supposed to be controlling, it's cooperative, it's, you know, it's hands-on learning, it's play-based. It's really fun at the core of all that. But of course there's the challenging moments and things, but yeah, I don't know. There were so many interesting things. I think another thing was like stopping myself from always saying,
Good job.
like, be careful.
Yeah.
Well, good job was hard for me to break too. I wanted to praise them, and it's not the feedback we wanted to be giving the students is more of like observational or you
And
know,
acknowledgement.
like look at those colors. Those blue shades are really popping on your paper, or something observational, less judgmental or less reward based.
Okay. So you wouldn't say like, ooh, like I like it.
Right.
We'd
Because
avoid
that,
You would
that.
say like, oh, like
Tell me
those
more about
colors
that.
are
Yeah.
mixing interestingly or
Exactly.
something like that.
Like, tell me about your work.
Ah,
What am
okay.
I looking at here?
Because
right?
it
If you see a
takes-
scribble,
Right.
you'd be like, oh, is that an airplane? Like, no, dude, it's a butterfly.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So
Right.
we're like pulling back our shit and letting the kid experience their, you know, for them to be like, this is an airplane. And
Right.
you'd be like, totally, dude.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's like lots
So
of
not only do you
encouragement.
not influence them, but you also don't center yourself in it. It's not about your experience. I like your work
Yeah.
makes their work, you know,
About you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really what you're trying to do is engage with them about what they're working on. So you
Right.
have to learn to kind of shift to just,
which I call harnessing intrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation is like, I think it's what sustains our lives, honestly.
Okay.
And it gets beat out of us if we get set up in these structures where we're having to please or work for somebody else as kids.
Okay.
Have to make mommy happy, have to, you know, we
Versus
become...
intrinsic. What does that mean?
Yeah, so
within?
intrinsic, yeah.
like it's almost
For
like
you.
it's honestly generated. You know, it's like a
Okay.
clean energy source. You want to do those things. You inherently enjoy reading the books, so you read constantly, right? Versus
Somebody
you
told
hate somebody told you you're supposed to read and they think it's hot or intelligent or like cool that you do it or whatever.
Yeah.
So you feel obligated to.
Okay. Is it kind of like if a kid punches a kid, like let's say they got punished, so they learn, oh, when I punch, I get punished. So
Right.
like when you
Or
grow
my mom
up,
gets
it's like
mad.
I'll punch a kid or I'll punch this guy at the bar, and I'll get probably in trouble, but like whatever, I can like I'm not afraid of getting in trouble, so there's no reason not to punch this guy. Versus like I don't want to punch that guy because it's the wrong thing to do. Like then you sort of learn that.
Well,
You know,
yeah,
am
and
I
even
making
the
sense?
regulatory tools to prevent you from getting to a point where you're ready to punch someone. You should have better tools in your your
We're talking
toolkit.
about adults. Yeah.
Adult,
because-
like, how does
Sure,
an adult
as an
get to a
adult.
point where they think it's okay to punch someone?
Right. And they're likely not even thinking. So that's a
Sure.
trauma conversation too,
Yeah,
because
okay.
when we have like impulsive reactions like that, we're offline. Right. So that's the, layman speak for dysregulation of the brain. But yeah, when you get triggered and you get upset, which we all do. I mean, that's one of my biggest messages
I
now.
punch everybody.
I'm punching
face
is
puncher.
cool. But yeah, I mean, I think that goes with the self-expression thing for me too. Like it's super duper important to me to normalize like negative behaviors, because the reality is
A lot
I'm
of
not
us
a
try 'em
proponent
on.
of
That's for sure.
abuse by any means, but the
course.
reality is, as human beings, we all experience negative emotions or negative feelings, right? Or have shit that comes up or stress. And I think that we don't talk about it in an honest way. And so when I started working with young children and I'd see the punchers or the screamers or the scratchers or the biters, I guess I related to them in some ways as a raging punk rocker for a minute.
Spitting blood.
Yeah. And also,
Blood spitter.
Yeah, the blood spitters.
also realized that was a dysregulated state, which is kind of cool in some ways. And like you're getting rowdy and you're getting your
Right.
kicks there.
Right.
And that there's like an emptiness afterwards sometimes, right? Which you could also extend to a variety of other behaviors in life that we might say, oh, I'm not sure I want to do that. Like getting shit-faced drunk, right? Or like having a drug problem. Like,
Right.
But the reality is there's not, excuse me. The reality is folks that do that into adulthood don't have other skills. They don't have other tools. That's a tool that's worked for a long time, worked, so to speak, right? So we all have kind of maladaptive coping skills that we use in our lives until we know how to do something better or different.
Okay.
And so my thing is that I want to whittle that down to make it really simple for people to understand, is that the reason why somebody at 35 is going to keep punching people, that's a behavior they've cultivated for a long time. There was a lot of messages they got about that growing up, for sure. Maybe they witnessed their dad doing that. Maybe when they did it, they didn't get in trouble, or they did get in trouble. I mean, there's a variety of things that could have happened, but they've certainly gotten away with it and received messages from their environment that they should keep doing that.
Right. And that's how you handle it. Maybe that gives you power over
Right.
people or something
Control,
like that.
a sense
Control,
of, sense of winning.
Sure.
I don't know.
If you're punching, then you're not getting punched. At
Right.
least.
It's highly protective.
So if you're talking about normalizing negative behavior, like how do you, I assume you're not just letting kids run wild and
No.
break
No.
shit. And like, so how do you address negative
Well,
behavior?
Yeah.
I mean, for boundaries, it's not like as an educator, you obviously have to educate, but first and foremost, you have to keep these children safe. So, that's like the number one boundary, I think, of just enforcing or deciding when you have to act in like a very intense or serious way.
But I guess my question is, like, if you're normalizing negative behavior,
Yeah.
in what way do you address negative behavior
Right.
that normalizes it, but also teaches someone in some way not to do that?
Right.
I would assume, right?
So
Or
it's
so that it
so
doesn't keep
there's
happening.
a combination of the development of the brain, so what's happening in the brain from in utero, so as the baby's growing through age 7, which is like the biggest brain change that happens in our whole lives. 95% of the brain develops in the first 7 years of life, which is huge information. Like that should be normalized information. Everybody should know that. So the first 7 years of life is the blueprint time.
Right.
And so then there's very particular things that are happening in the brain, and we know a shit ton about it now. So we see what adults call aggressive behaviors, like punching somebody out or scratching their mom or flipping out on the floor between 2 and 5 years old. And that's when the limbic system is developing, which is where all of our hormones are pumping, all that stuff is going on. So when we see a kid at that age range, little tiny fucking kid doing something crazy or out of control or aggressive, we want to really handle them with gentle gloves.
Just kind of guide them the right way.
Well, there's a time where you're going to have to say, not a plan, and pick that dude up, right?
Sure.
We can't let some little dude beat up on another
poor
dude.
David, he didn't.
Yeah,
he didn't
David just
deserve
got
that.
his ass kicked.
Yeah.
But we want to look at it is that little kids are like barbarians and they live in the fucking moment. They are right here, right now, which is something I really love about them too.
Yeah.
I do
'Cause
too.
It's just they're so fucking present.
Very present.
And it's all based on needs and feelings, like I described. Like little kids live in the moment. Like everything is object permanence right now. And if this is my favorite thing, which it is at the moment, and you come over here and take it from me, I don't have higher brain function, first of all, because I'm a little tiny kid living in the moment and I don't have the ability to plan or calm myself down or do all these adult behaviors, right? All I have is right now, and this is the most special thing.
So what do you tell the
you
kid if I
take
took
it from me,
Yeah.
it's going to feel awful to me and I'm going to react as a barbarian.
Sure.
Which means I might hit you, I might run away, I might lay on the floor and scream, right? We're going to have one of those fight, flight, freeze responses.
Right.
And so as a caregiver in that situation, you want to be attuned to what the fuck is happening and be able to empathize with what's happening in front of your face. So,
Sure.
oh, this is Emily's special thing and dude just came over and grabbed it. You can then map those needs and feelings for the kids. But here's the thing, once they're calmer. So once the brain is dysregulated, whether you're 35 and punching somebody at the bar or you're 2.5
Sure.
and grabbing something out of somebody's hand, it's regulation is regulation. You need help calming down. You need help getting your brain back to chill.
Equilibrium.
Right.
So we got to
Yeah.
help the kid chill first.
Sure.
It's just like adults though too.
Yeah.
You can't reason with a motherfucker that's punching.
No.
So we got to do real things to help people calm down, which
Calm the
really
nervous
has
system,
to do with safety, which is really interesting too, especially if you look at our like prison system or like corporal punishment, like we're way off with that stuff because this is brain science. We need real tools to really help people like get to a place of like, okay, I'm chilling. And once we're there, whether 35 or 2, then we can start talking about what happened, right? And so with a 2-year-old, I'm going to pick that guy up and be like, hey, whoa, this thing happened, right? And I'm going to hold them or help them, soothe them,
Right.
take a
Come
walk
back.
outside,
Yeah.
not talk too much. Hopefully I have a safe, trusting relationship with this kid. And then we can talk about what happened. And I can say things like, oh, he took your truck or he took your special drink and you didn't like that. And if I get it right, the kid's going to be like, yeah. And then I'm going
Right.
to say, and then you bit him. That was an ouchie. No biting. I might say something
right,
like
right.
that, right? But then I'm also going to know that little kids live in the moment. 2 to 5 years old, they're developing higher brain function. That means that we can't tell them not to do that again and expect them to not do it. So that means my relationship changes and I need to be close. So if I see a kid that's a biter or a hitter or a scratcher or a runner, then the information there is, I better stay close to this kid.
It
And
will-
so
it
this
will
is
happen
what
again.
People don't understand is they're like, I told him not to do it and he keeps doing it. And it's like,
Right.
well, actually his brain doesn't work in a different way than that until he's
Right.
closer to 5, 6, and 7.
Sure.
So there's a lot of damage that happens for most people between 2 and 5, or the reality is birth to age 7, because there's just a lot of traumatic experiences that happen for most of us. Because,
Reactions.
yeah, and the brain science conversation is relatively new and it hasn't hit the mainstream yet, but that's kind of my big purpose, is to really make it accessible, normalize it. Because if we shame it, our culture is so shame crazy. If we shame it, we can't learn. That's another problem with whatever movement you're in, right? Whatever thing you want to do. If you are telling somebody they are fucked up,
Won't work.
there's no learning that can happen.
Yeah, they're just
And we
retreated.
can't just tell
They're in
everybody
their little
that they're
turtle shell.
narcissistic assholes. Like, are there narcissists out there? Sure. Are there sociopaths out there? Sure.
Well,
Are there
sure.
abusive
Sure.
motherfuckers out there? Sure.
Yeah.
But guess what? There's not a whole shit ton of them like we think there are. And this
Right.
is the problem with like the psychobabble and the like modern day self-help conversation, is that like now everybody has this language. So everybody that pisses you off is abusive or a narcissist.
Right. Right.
That's like not helpful.
Right.
Like we got to dig in. We got to do a little bit more work than that. I think
Yeah.
Americans get lazy though too. We just like to
know.
sum shit up.
Oh,
You know.
so lazy. I think the human
Even-
brain is lazy. It,
Yeah.
it wants
Yeah.
to simplify the patterns that it's seeing. Lowest common denominator, make it as simple as possible so that
Yeah.
we have room for it.
Well,
you know?
we even do it with like our adverbs and things. Like, why does everyone have to be like good or bad? Like, can we get, or like, how are you doing? Like, good, I'm bad.
Yeah. I
Like,
I believe those are adjectives.
whatever the hell. We played a game last night, and all the things are just jumbled in my brain right now.
Yeah. But yeah, we want things, either it's good or it's bad.
Well,
but in
yeah,
reality,
it's just, I
it's
mean,
gray
the
all
way
day.
kind of good. It's gray all day.
all
not
day.
even that,
Yeah.
but just how we describe things. Like,
Yeah.
we can do better than these just basic things. We need to be like, I'm feeling timid or like uncomfortable, like words that are bigger for kids. Like they can figure it out. They need to start learning what emotional reaction they're having. That's where it becomes like a naming game.
More
where
nuanced language. Than
more
just good or
nuanced
bad.
language than just simple like, oh, I'm happy today. Today I'm sad, or I'm angry today. What is it? What's the anger? What's really happening? Like getting more specific and getting. I'm not really angry. I'm frustrated because he took my favorite cup, or whatever's
But
going
we
on.
dismiss in this culture because guess what happens?
because we're
Adults
fixers.
feel uncomfortable
Fixers.
when we hold space for other people's ish.
Yeah,
It's
we just
really
want to fix it.
fucking hard when someone you care about is struggling
Yeah.
and they say, "Hi, I'm struggling. I feel like shit." So many of us either dismiss or fix,
I do both.
or we do both.
I've been working on it, but like
It's fucking hard. And let me tell you, the reason why it's hard is because then you feel uncomfortable in your body. And none of us like to feel uncomfortable in our body. So we want to do everything we can to get the fuck out of there. But these are unconscious states, right? So it's about really being present, having the information, sinking down into it, and doing our own work inside of it. Like, wow, I feel uncomfortable right now.
Right.
Or, getting those good phrases in your back pocket to hold space for somebody else. Maybe you're at capacity and you don't have the ability to help them problem solve their shit. Or like being able to ask, right? Let's say like a kid or your partner or whatever. Somebody's just like, I'm suffering. I'm having a hard time. And then you get to say something like, do you want comfort? Like, do you want an ear right now or do you want advice? Right? Like, just to be able to have like some quick draws of like, where are we at right now? Like, do you just want me to hug you?
right.
Should I just sit here
Do you
quietly
want
on
me
the
to sit here
couch?
and listen
Yeah.
to you? Or do you want me to help you problem solve this ish?
Right.
But the reality is we fucking talk to ourselves about all kinds of stuff that we don't say to the other person. And when we're talking about kids and adults, wow, does control come out. That's what happens most of the time, is that the caregiver is like, stop it. Stop it. Go
Right.
sit in timeout.
Right.
I'm going to spank your butt. Like,
Right.
don't be a little asshole.
Rein it in.
Yeah, and it's not
Reel it
because
in,
those
rein it.
people are
Rein it,
shit
reel it.
people.
Reel it in.
It's because they feel uncomfortable. They don't know how to process their emotions. And then
Right.
they might be scared that if they don't nip this shit in the bud, then it's going to overly develop into the teen years and adult years, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
all
there's so much
stress responses
pressure.
all
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, no
for
kidding.
folks.
When you
No
started
kidding.
the school, did
Yeah.
you have children already of
I
your
did.
own?
Yeah.
And did like working with, were you already like a preschool teacher before you started your own school?
Yeah. So around my wild days that we were discussing previously, actually, when I was with Calexico in Europe, I tried real fucking hard to marry this really cute German guy because I was like, I don't want to go back to Tucson.
Take me with you.
Yeah, but I have been struggling. I mean, it's probably another podcast, but like, I've been going to therapy for a long time, and my background's in psychology, and I work as a consultant and a mental health coach professionally now. And I just didn't want to deal with my shit. So I was like, I'm going to stay over in Europe. But that didn't work out. So I had to come back. And so my plan was to like get a grip. Stop drinking, which I did at that point. I found out later that I wasn't an alcoholic, but I thought something was wrong with me.
Sure.
Right. So I tried all
Never
the
hurts
things.
to take a break either.
Yeah, I was sober when I was 21 to 22, which is kind of ironic because I had a fake ID when I was younger.
Funny.
Anyway, I started teaching preschool in those days.
That's when you turn 21. Like, I should probably sober
Every
up.
ex-party girl does. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
but-
that's funny.
The party girl
So
became
you
a
became
preschool
sober
teacher.
and then you became a
gig.
preschool teacher at 21, 22?
Yeah, but I was still focused on being famous. I was still focused on, I did a couple B movies. I tried to be an actress. I'd modeled since I was a kid, like all the things, right? And then I started working with autistic kids when I was about 22, 23, and I was going to community college. And I just dug in. It changed my life. I worked with this kid that I don't know, there was just something about her. I felt like I could hear her in a way that other people couldn't. And I really loved connecting with her. She was nonverbal. And so she would make noises and she would scream and do all this wild stuff. And I just felt like
I get you.
I got you.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, there was a series of things that happened there. So I kind of started slowly.
You are a good
moving out.
whisperer, especially for the kids who are. I feel like the kids who are always having an
Misunderstood.
extra hard time. The
I like the
misunderstood
bad ones.
kids. Yes, shockingly, Emily likes the rebels. Basically,
Right.
the not necessarily rebellious, but
The
having a hard
challenging
time.
ones.
The challenging
The
kids.
Yeah.
misunderstood,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was that
the
kid,
misfits.
Right.
I was that kid, but I got away with a lot because I was cute.
It always helps.
If you're cute, you can get away with a lot of shit. But then I had a baby when I was 24, and that changed everything too. Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, and now fast forward almost 18 years later,
Yeah, that's right.
right?
Yeah,
She's
I'm
leaving soon.
17.
I'm
It's gonna
old
be-
as shit, and my kid is old as shit.
I don't think I said that. I'm not sure that was actually what I was
Now
saying.
who's misunderstood?
It's all true.
Oh man, but what a wild ride! And then you obviously
Yeah.
had one more
Yeah.
little girl along the way.
Yep.
It's just so wild. You're kind of turning a chapter in that way.
That's true too. I mean, shit does not slow down for me. It's been a wild ride so far.
It has. You've had some things to
I've got
overcome.
some
You know
wild
that
stuff,
school.
yeah.
The school eventually burnt down,
Yeah.
which is
the school that you
crazy.
worked at. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an electrical fire in
Yeah.
this old Adobe. It was like a beautiful little schoolhouse in an old Adobe home in Barrio Viejo, like just the quaintest little spot in Tucson. And
Yeah.
oh,
Oldest Adobe in the neighborhood.
Oldest
it was built
Adobe.
in 1862. It
Turns
was a
out
way station
fire
for
hazard.
wagons.
Yeah, no fire codes
Yeah.
back then.
That's true. But I rebuilt it. We
Yes.
reopened. Yeah. And then ran it again for another 4 years.
and then
COVID
COVID,
hit.
and you closed it up. But I mean, good things have been happening. Like you said, you've been doing consulting and
Yeah.
coaching, and
Yeah.
that seems to be going well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about the coaching. Like,
Yeah.
who do you coach and what do you coach them on?
Yeah. Good questions. So I tend to have my hands in lots of pots. It's kind of my thing. I think you can probably tell that. So I work as a parent coach, predominantly a conscious parenting coach, but I like to say fuck a lot. That's like a really big part of that for
Everybody
me.
likes when a teacher says fuck. It makes you kind of trust them. It makes them real.
It's just real.
I
I'm
know.
really interested
I've
in
been
being
mentally
real.
trying to keep a fuck count
Yeah.
going on, but I just whoosh. It's
Have
gone.
you?
No, I'm like she's saying fuck a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm
Jeez.
into
Oh,
it.
I like when you
fuck.
say fuck A.
Fuck.
You've got a few things that,
Yeah.
but yeah, fuck
Fuck-
A.
fuck's
You're like,
one
it
of
is
my-
fuck A cold. I never heard that.
Fuck is probably my favorite word. So
Fuck
yeah,
the
I'm a
word.
conscious parenting coach, which I toy with that phrase a lot because I think that consciousness gets wrapped up in this like bougie mindfulness bullshit that I'm not into. But the reality is, consciousness is a more expansive term than whatever modern hip culture is all about. And for me, it's like what we were just talking about. It's like the brain science is super fucking important and it's not really that complex. Like, it's pretty tangible information. And then there's the needs and feelings aspect, which is kind of the therapy speak. Like, all of our behavior is communication of some internal need. And then the be here now, dealing with your shit, projection stuff. I think most of us project our experiences, our internal dialogue onto the other. And I think consciousness is really about like being present with what's really happening. And it's not a destination. So
How many
We
times do you
can't-
have to tell me this?
yeah, we can't really arrive there.
Emily tells
like
me
it's
this
an
all the time.
ongoing, it's an ongoing journey, right? Like I can like be a pro at this shit and work with people. And like, it doesn't mean that I'm some perfect person, but I'm not at all. In fact,
Right.
I'm super flawed in a variety of ways, but it's this kind of choose your own adventure mindset. And I'm going to fuck up one
Right.
way or another continually. And the consciousness aspect is like, oh, shit. I didn't realize I fucked you in that. I'm mad, so I can't like talk to you about that right now. I'm gonna get back to you next
It's
week.
like a self-awareness.
Yeah.
And awareness of like where science is at, kind of like it's awareness. It's kind of what
It's
you
like
mean by
it's
conscious.
about
It's
awareness.
a bodily it's an inventory, taking inventory of yourself more often. And just because when you do that, you don't let yourself slip so easily, right? You don't let yourself get phased. It's sort of like
You
kinda
will
like,
still royally fuck up.
Oh,
I
sure.
still royally fuck up sometimes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It's not like you said, you can't just
Yeah.
be immune to big emotions
Right.
because you know how they feel in your body. Like
Right.
they're still gonna come, they're still gonna surprise you. They sneak up. That's just
Oh yeah, and you're going to
what
continue to
happens.
have relationships in your lives, and things are going to change, and like shit's going to happen that you could have never expected, and then there you are again, right? So anyway,
So
what
you're
do I
helping
do?
you help parents?
I help parents deal with their kids. I specialize in trauma. I specialize in kids that have diagnoses, so ADHD, autism, OCD, all the things. But I come at it from a non-punitive approach. I used to be more punitive in my practice.
Okay.
So I've come through my work, which I feel pretty proud to talk about because I have made some pretty serious mistakes, right? And so to be able to have the grace or the knowledge to be like, wow, I fucked up, and I get to like own that and hold that and mess around with that a little bit. I'm really sensitive to the bypassing stuff that I think happens, right? Again, the arrival conversation, like, oh, I got it all in the bag. I figured it out. Like, nope.
Right.
That's not real.
red flag. Red
Work
flag.
with parents. I also am a progressive educator, so I work with teachers. I work with school systems. I work with organizations as well. Like I just did a training for United.
So
Way.
all the
Some new video content coming out soon
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
I'm collaborating with some other folks. Yeah.
so generally all the sort of your experience, your we'll just say knowledge and awareness of
Expertise.
the sciences, your expertise, you sort of
Disseminated.
disseminate. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
You
I've been
disseminate.
You guys are on fire.
I've been
And
tripping
that's
over words
that's
all night,
your
so I'm
main
glad I got
profession
one
now,
big one.
Is disseminating this, that, you know, like,
Yeah, and it keeps going. Yeah, it keeps going.
is there anything about, I
It
just
does
realized,
keep going because honestly, I take so much. I just want to go on record.
go on it.
I just want to
Go
go
on the record.
on record. I mean, I'm
make sure we're
so
recording.
grateful. Like, so grateful for everything I learned. Emily would close the preschool every other Friday, a half day, and we would do teacher trainings, and we would like do tough work, like get to know yourself, get
was
to know
like
your
therapy.
issues,
Yeah.
like therapy. There was usually wine and chocolate there.
yeah.
It was the coolest situation, you know.
That's a cool boss.
And it was like, just show up. You got to show up for yourself. You can't just dust yourself off. You got to like take time to
so
really
you sort of
dig
had
deep.
your
Can't stay on the
teachers,
surface.
your staff would do these like check-ins. How
Yeah.
often?
Every other week we did those.
Oh, that's
And
great.
I don't know. I stayed in early childhood education. I'll probably stay with it my whole life. And I always
Yeah.
like think about those things and carry them with me. I think even as an adult with outside of the classroom, just about how I carry myself in general has shifted because of that. So thank you, my dear.
Oh, Christine.
It was a
I
fun
love you.
time.
Yeah.
Such fun time.
And super fun that we became friends afterwards.
Oh
and,
my
like,
gosh.
Carved out
Yeah,
this
that
like,
was
whole
super-
other
Yeah,
relationship.
How did that?
So that was kind of serendipitous too,
It
because
was.
when I first moved back from Tucson, I hadn't even found a place to live yet. So I was
When you moved
staying.
back, when you left Tucson.
She left for Indy and
So
then
I
came
left.
back.
Yeah,
When you
so
came back to
When I
Tucson.
came back to Tucson in
Uh-huh.
2019 in January, I was staying with Kira, my boss, and her family, and I hadn't found a place to live. And I ended up just like randomly dropping off her daughter Anya over at ballet one time. So I was kind of in like, I wasn't on my normal path, right? I was like just sort of on the opposite end of town. And I bumped into Emily and Linza going to ballet class. small town. And then I, mentioned that I was still looking for a place. And she's like, I think my neighbors across the street are moving out. And I'll talk to their landlord. I think I got a call like almost immediately from that creepy landlord. And next thing you know, I was moving in.
Yeah. So we were neighbors. We were across the street neighbors, but it was serendipitous. We ran into each other crossing the street. She had been gone for 5 years.
Yeah, I think 5 years.
And then, I hooked her up with the spot. She became my neighbor. We started having wine dates and looking at the stars and like just interesting to have that kind of dynamic time. I mean, it's really interesting for me to reflect on it too, because looking back, I realized like how much pressure I put on my teachers too, to really dive into doing therapy work with me. And as a rookie, I don't think I really understood what I was doing, but I just knew that it was important. It was important work to like get cozy with yourself. But I was definitely a rookie. And so I think that bonded us in a way.
It was different.
It went just different. A different relationship because we got real deep when she was working together.
Yeah. Yes. And you would take us on overnight retreats like once a year or maybe even more often than that.
But I was the leader of that, like I was the leader of that. And so then when she came back, we had this bond, I think, that was already there. Mm-hmm. And then when we're on a different playing field, then we're equal.
Right. Then it became peers.
Right.
Exactly.
Was that like a process? Was there a time where that was just like, good to see you, like we're buds now?
Yeah. Well, we didn't know what was going to happen, but it just happened because we had this like super deep connection. Right. I mean, the reality is when people work with me, there's a lot of crying. There's a lot of like deep work going on.
I acknowledge things. I acknowledge things to myself that I have suppressed my entire life.
Wow.
Yeah. Little things like, I mean, I even
like what?
Well, one comes to mind. Well, so many things, honestly, where to even begin, I guess I had seen my parents as parents before, but really kind of coming to terms with that. And, one thing, like I was raised obviously primarily by my dad, and I very often put him on a pedestal because I was grateful for him, and I still am. And that sometimes, I didn't necessarily acknowledge any shortcomings that I might have had in my upbringing because I didn't want them to be true. But like there was a lot of things that were problematic, like ways that I didn't necessarily get support that I needed, to no fault of anybody's, but just
recognizing it,
and
seeing your parents as people,
as
children,
seeing ways that that I hadn't realized, that like ways that I needed more, and that it was okay, and all these like complicated for all these things,
contradictory things to be experienced at the same time. I love my dad, and
I love my dad, but like I needed more support building confidence, and certain things like maybe his humor or whatever, while I love it and it influenced my humor, and I still am like that in so many ways, at times it also wasn't conducive to me building like a robust sense of confidence or whatever. Like these little things that
Sure. Nobody can perfectly parent a child. So it's only just realistic to recognize certain flaws. And when you notice a flaw that came at you at a young age or whatever, like now you have the chance to change it and kind of grow from it. Right?
And two things there. One is the gray all day thing. Like there it is again. Yeah. And I think culturally there's a lot of fear there. There's this obedience thing. There's this
loyalty.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of shame about that, right? If you don't obey your parents, you're not going to get love. Like it's pretty deep
conditional,
shit.
Yeah.
Right.
And for some folks, they, go to their dying day with that level of denial or dismissal of perhaps some of the pain or hurts that they went through. So again, there's my normalizing conversation. But I also understand that, I've worked with some folks that are really don't want to go there, don't want to tell those truths, or maybe need a little bit more time. So the gray all day thing, I think, is really powerful and important, and I think that's what you're speaking to.
Exactly.
But the other thing I was thinking of too that you said, shit, I think I lost it.
It'll come back. But yeah, I don't know. It just, kind of the ways, I mean.
Oh, I got it.
Good, go.
Protection. So when we were talking about the protective thing too, it's really easy to extrapolate and make sense of a 35-year-old dude punching somebody else out. And like, we kind of processed that very quickly together just a moment ago about like how that's a protective mechanism, right?
Right.
But what Christine just described is also a protective mechanism, but it's not punching somebody out. It's more like a fawning or like a pleasing behavior of protection. Like, I'm not going to look at this thing because I need it to be good.
Right.
I need
it to be true.
Well, and I
Yeah.
need,
true,
Right.
and this story to be good and true, and like not.
I love you, Pops. I love you. You're the best.
Oh,
But you know,
your dad's amazing.
It's like I can't even like give a critique without being like, but he's the best.
No
Little worried.
human
He's the best.
is perfect.
Yes.
Obviously. But it's like, I think this goes to the gray all day. Like, your dad is good. It's not like your dad's either good or bad.
No.
So if you say something bad about your parents, that means they're bad now. It's
Right.
like, he's good and whatever. Everybody.
But this
is
is in everything. This
paradox.
polarized
Yeah,
thing
100%.
is in everything. I'm
agree.
kind of
It is.
digging into this as we
No,
talk
I've
about
been thinking
politics.
about it a lot.
It's too
actually. Yeah.
simple. That's what I
Politics is
mean.
like
You
that, too.
can't just label it with the good and the bad. Things are
It's
nuanced
just not what's
all the
real.
time.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
brain
it's
wants it to
not
just like
what's
what category? Where do I
real.
put that? Good or bad?
That's the
like,
thing.
let me look at the.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to get so into it. Like, let me look at Palestine and Israel. Like, okay, is Israel good or bad? Like, which is it? You know, and we just want to put it in one or the other. But it's very possible and most likely that Israel is both good and not good
Right.
at
Or
the
just
same time.
Gray all day.
Gray all day. I want to go to something to kind of bring it all back
Yeah,
full circle. You're a coach now.
Yeah.
Your dad was a coach.
I know.
Is
Isn't that
there
funny?
Is there anything you sort of learned from your dad, or did you like kind of have a day where you're like, wait a second, I'm kind of like my dad. I'm a coach, or like, have you thought about this? Or
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think is going on there?
Yeah. I mean, it's so complicated, and I won't drag out a long ass story about it, but like, you know, I had a tricky relationship with my dad. That's true, right? Lots of gray areas there, but we never lived together. So I was a visiting kid, but it was also, like I described earlier, it was over the top. I mean, there was something so sensational and exciting about being a coach's daughter and going to Seattle and him taking me out to dinner and like people asking for autographs or,
Sure.
you know, it's just really
Celebrity.
exciting.
Yeah.
But that also kind of fucked me up a little bit because we didn't have a typical relationship, you know, or he'd come visit me for
Well,
my
there's such a
birthday.
performative element in that
Absolutely.
too. So when you,
Yeah.
and then you add that to like limited time and limited engagement, and then there's like this veil of, you know, performance over it too.
Absolutely.
So it's, that's
and
another
I've struggled
distancing
with some
thing.
of the performative aspects in my life too. For sure. And watching him on TV, like I said, or he'd come to Arizona for my birthday and he'd come to the classroom and give a talk and then the kids would get his autograph. So it was not a typical relationship. That being said, genetically, we are so fucking similar. We look alike, we joke alike, we do the same impersonations. Like, it's wacky from that perspective because he was an influence in my life, but very limited. Like, I probably spent 3 weeks a year with him, starting at age 4 through 14 when I stopped talking to him for a chunk of time.
Wow.
So very little exposure, but we are so much the same.
So that's
so
nature,
wild.
not nurture.
Yeah,
That your
definitely.
Yeah,
similarities,
I
because there
mean-
wasn't the nurture.
yeah.
I can go down a rabbit hole with that. So
Okay.
we now call that epigenetics, which is how nature and nurture interact with each other. So
Never heard of that.
nature is your biology and nurture is your environment.
Right.
And so we were just talking about this with 23andMe. So Christine's sister did that, but like her stats are not going to be Christine's because Christine has different genes. And so we all are born with DNA and genes, and what trips each gene in our body is based on our environment. Even when you raise people in the same environment, they're going to interpret their environment in a different way than the next.
That's
So
why
is it not that
the same parents can have such a different impact on their 3 kids, because each individual kid is going to have a completely individual experience inside their parenting style.
But with like 23andMe, if it's you're 20% French, that doesn't mean necessarily that whatever, or you're 25% French. That doesn't necessarily mean that your grandfather was French. It just means you got 25% of the French genes in you. Wow.
Isn't that cool?
So siblings have different 23andMe results.
Have different,
Actually,
I never knew that, because when we
Both of
looked
them
at
have
your
sent me
sister's results, I was like,
theirs
well,
now. I
this
should
is
compare
you.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I guess it's different.
I mean, I think it'd be pretty similar.
probably be close.
Well, of
probably
course.
be
There's
very
not going to be
similar.
like Chinese all of a sudden in there. You know?
Who knows?
Who
but
knows? You never know.
Hey,
you
come
never
on.
know. Come on now.
But wow, I never knew that.
Yeah, so nature,
pretty cool.
how nature and nurture, or biology and environment interact with each other is the new science. It's called epigenetics.
Epigenetics.
And so that's why we see with like kids that are adopted at birth, that have never met their birth parents and like grow up to be, 25, 30 and go find their birth parents and have like really weird things in common with their parents, right? So it's not all one, again, not black and white. It's not nature versus nurture. It's how it all gray all day works together. So I have stuff with my dad that's in common. And for years, that was challenging for me because we had a challenging relationship, to say the least, for a long time. And so there was a part of me that felt like almost ashamed or insecure, angry, rageful about my similarities with him because I was pissed at him. But
that doesn't do anything for a bad rejection of self or any self-harming ideology or anything like that.
Right, because your view of him,
like,
you're like, but I'm that way. So what's my view of me?
Yeah, but it's interesting because like when I know, that thing they say when you get into a flow state or the zone, athletes talk about, musicians too, right? Where you just like lose track of time and you're just like in your thing. I get like that when I work, when I give a talk or I give a class or I work with folks, sometimes like I will lose track of what's happening. Like I'm doing the thing that I'm good at.
Have you blacked out this entire podcast, or are you still with us today?
I mean, I looked over at the time. I was like, what?
Yeah.
We've been going for an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, dang.
It felt like way less than that. That's crazy.
But I think like my dad was the same way. Like he was such a good player. He was such a good coach. Like that was his jam. And I think we probably could have geeked out more about how similar we were. I think if I had known the players or I'd known the coaches that he worked with, I think, if they'd known me well and like could see, like my mom would always talk about it. But it's funny. It is funny. I think there's and I didn't even realize it. That's the funny thing too, is that it took me several years before I was like, oh shit, I'm a coach and he's a coach. And people would, cause I'm an Amazon, I like to say. I'm 5'11" and not small. And so, and I always wore high heels growing up too. So I was always larger than life. And then when people would find out that my dad was a player, they'd start calling me Tillman. Like I was a football player.
Yeah.
Which I resisted because as a woman too, especially growing up in the 80s and the 90s, it wasn't that cool to be a big girl.
Right.
So I like
Tillman, hit the showers.
Yeah. So I kind of like resisted. I tried to be more femme for a while, which I think a lot was the like modeling and actress thing too, of like trying to like morph into being something different than I was. But I'll say now in my 40s, I'm kind of like with it.
Yeah. Well, good.
Hey,
you are pretty awesome.
Guess what?
Well, you can be tall and also beautiful and feminine. I mean, those aren't
they're not
mutually
exclusive.
exclusive.
Again, gray all day.
Do you think subconsciously maybe, like your dad was a coach, and when you were interacting with him, he's on this major pedestal. He's a celebrity. Do you think in your head it was like, I need to become a coach? That's what I should do because coach is revered, is respected, is celebrity. Coach.
I don't know. That's like my unconscious talking. I don't know if that's true. I always said I was going to be a teacher or a mom or an actress. Then I fell down the rabbit hole of being famous and beautiful, which at this point I've completely rejected. Like I could give a fuck. And I think that was like a performative aspect of how I was raised and like social pressure and all the things.
And a need for acknowledgement and validation that comes from that attention.
And being seen and being heard inside of that stuff. I mean, I think that I remember the energy as a teeny tiny kid of like watching him on TV or like being at a game and like,
it's a pretty palpable feeling, yeah.
It is. And then it took me a minute because then I started a freaking preschool. Like, who cares about a preschool? But it became this like cool thing, and then became a consultant and a coach inside of that. And I had that aha moment of sitting there being like, holy shit. I kind of did it my own way, which I've always done. I'm always a rebel. But it's so similar to that guy. Yeah.
Well, let's have a little toast to him. He just passed away, 2 months ago?
Yeah. Yeah, it was March 15th, 14th.
Well, Rusty Tillman, cheers to
Rusty
you,
Tillman,
bud.
Cheers to you.
Oh, look at your little cup. It's so cute.
Well, this has been awesome, Em. Thank you for being on our show.
Absolutely. I love you guys.
How do you think it went? Did you like it?
Great. Yeah.
Earlier we were like, what are we even going to talk about?
Yeah.
Or you said that.
Yeah.
But this flowed so nicely. This was so great having you on. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll come back anytime.
Please
Fuck
do.
yeah.
This has been so fun.
Yeah.
We still are due for a dance party, though. That's why we have to hurry out of here.
We're going to go dance party.
Maybe
we'll even make some music. We'll spit some blood. It's going to be pretty.
even
It's going to be
knows?
hardcore. There's some disco records over there.
Oh.
We have one that's like cowboy disco.
Oh,
It's called the Silver Spurs Orchestra.
Oh, remember that town I was trying to remember the other night? Calexico.
Calexico.
We see
some
you, Calexico.
cowboys there. We see you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Emily.
Ruby Star, everybody.
Woo! J-Do.
The real Ruby Star. Out, over, done, kaput.
Or what was your, what did you sign in the?
Amelia Lopez.
Amelia Lopez.
It's okay. Amelia Lopez.
Te amo, Amelia Lopez.
All right.
I want like the sounds of the mariachis to like fill in, immediately. Come on, fill in.
Yeah.